Those kids do amazing things. Too bad is this the last one, Shirley?
The last year, now there should still be
One more year.
One more.
Alicia's gonna be, 63.
Yep.
How do you, I'm hard pressed to remember my age.
Because she's probably the
How do
same
you,
age.
We're the same.
Wow.
Same age. That's why I never forget my wife's birthday. It's 2 days after mine.
That's
Okay,
usually.
so I'm assuming he's ready?
I think you said that.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna call this special meeting of the Flower Bluff ISD Board of Trustees to order at 6 p.m. Let the record show that we do have a quorum with Mrs. Jennifer Welp not in attendance. And I will lead us in the invocation. Okay. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you once again grateful for the opportunity to serve the children of this district. We ask, Lord, that you grant us the knowledge and the wisdom that we need to make the right decisions, and then the courage we need to move on those. We ask that you be with everyone as they think through this process, with our leaders, with our teachers, with our students, as we get through the next few weeks. It's going to be a tough time. All of this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, and now the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, you may be seated. And welcome back, officials. Greg, appreciate you being here. Where's your buddy?
We're all over the state.
Okay, all
this
right.
week.
That's
And,
all right.
And the legislative session's going on top of that.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, audience access is if somebody has a device, I don't know who I'm talking to. Yeah.
See that camera's
There, okay. If you have a device, you can go on to the website and click on Board of Trustees, and then it will show you how to get to this particular meeting. And YouTube, it's a YouTube channel. And it's my understanding, we do not have any public comments. I would like to move to item 7A, which is the consideration for approval of the 2021-2022 district academic calendar. And this is
Yes, we have Dr. Sham here with us this evening to go over the transmittal page and then the outcome of the votes and the recommendation.
Okay, good afternoon. So in your transmittal report, I kind of summarized, the number of times that we've met as a calendar committee. This year was, different compared to previous years. Part of that was because we were trying to present an intersessional calendar, which was our calendar A, and then B was a more traditional calendar. So with the first round of survey, it was favored a more traditional calendar. So I'm just kind of recapping. And so what we did after that is we came together as a committee and we looked at calendar B, but we gave our committee members an opportunity to tweak it a bit. One of the concern was the long week after Christmas break. And so what we did is we went back and, like I said, we offered an opportunity for committee members to modify that. And so we ended up with like 10 different versions, and then we narrowed it down to 2. And so what we did prior to surveying the community, parents, students, and the staff is we met with the DEIC committee, and we presented the 2 calendars that were going to be pulled again. And so they also approved the recommendation to move forward with the calendar that was favored the most to bring that to the Board of Trustees. So here we are today. And so so as soon as we met with the DEIC committee, we polled the parent staff. We actually did 3 surveys because we wanted to make sure that we were able to reach everyone. So in your handout, the first survey that we did was the Survey Monkey results. And the reason why we went with that tool, because when we had our last board meeting, one of the concerns that we had was people, voting multiple times on, on a computer. So, this limited the number of a vote to one device. So, I can't say that someone went on their phone and voted, but we knew that if someone voted using SurveyMonkey on that computer, that was it. So that's why we went with that online tool to address that concern that we have here. And so with SurveyMonkey, we were able to poll the community members, parents, and staff. And so what you see here in your transmittal report are the results. So for calendar option 1, we had 438 responses, and actually the percentages were very close just across the board. We ended up with 44% for option 1, and then option 2, we ended up with 56%. If you go to the second survey, we also wanted to poll our students. That was one of the Ms. Velma Garcia Solis's initiative was to make sure that we included our students and made sure that they had a voice in our calendar for next school year. So we created a Google survey. And so what we did is we surveyed our junior high students, and we also surveyed our high school students. And so what you see in front of you are the results. And again, well, this one here was different. They actually chose option 1 was more favorable to the students as opposed to option 2. And I did want to explain why it didn't add up to 100. Is because we just rounded it up. For option 1, we really had 50. It was 54.5, and so we rounded it up to 55. And then for option 2, it was actually 45.5, so we rounded it up to 46. That's why it doesn't add up to 100. You'll get like 101%. So we just rounded that up. And then also, we also wanted to make sure that we were able to include our Department of Operations, which is like our nutrition, our transportation, and maintenance. We wanted to make sure that they also have an opportunity to vote. And so what we did is we did a paper ballot with that group. And so we distributed the ballots, and then we collected them and we counted them. And so what you see here are the results of the ballot survey. So with this one, they were also in favor of option 1. So what we did is we ended up tallying all the votes collectively. And so when you did that, you ended up with option 2 being the most preferred calendar with 999 votes, as opposed to calendar option 1 with 964 votes. So, there was very close, but in the end, option 2 was the most preferred. And so it's, we'd like to recommend that we approve our calendar for next school year. And I'd also like to make a note that for next year, we do plan on meeting early on with our calendar committee.
That's good.
And exploring other options and maybe doing a better job of communicating the different types of calendar options. So that's
They'll start analyzing the year-round
Mhm.
option in May, and then
Mhm.
come back in August and
Mhm.
continue those conversations.
Very good.
but really communicating to, everyone, what does it mean by intersessional calendar? What do we mean by year-round calendar? And really communicating that information out to the public.
And remember one thing, people don't like to change. So
No.
if we're going to take a leap and move to a different calendar type, because it's better for our students, it's better for what we're trying to do, it may take a little courage on our part to go ahead and push that through the first time.
Mhm.
Seems
You know,
like it
I
was
don't want to
really
disrupt
popular
things,
then.
but on the
Right.
other hand, you get a lot of resistance when you try to change things.
Well, the one thing that I wanted to make sure that we brought to everybody is just being very transparent as to what the implications are gonna be in every area. So
Right.
that's the part that I'd like for the committee to study and then bring back.
And maybe, I know one of the biggest concerns is for, what do you do with the kids?
Exactly.
And the ones who are staying home. And maybe Boys and Girls Club could become part of that picture, I don't know.
And we we've already kind of had that discussion, like
Okay.
providing enrichment activities for those kids and, you know, just offering different types of activities for everyone, not just for one
Okay.
type of student
Well,
population.
that's a discussion you're going to have, and I'm sure it's going to be a heated one, but that's.
Yes,
right.
yes.
I'd like to just be a little fly.
I don't really see,
Yes.
I don't really see a substantive difference as far as the students go.
No.
I mean, like, there's just 1 or 2 days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Really, what
off.
you're looking at is one district holiday that we moved around, and we also moved around 3 professional days. One was a professional day, one was a teacher planning day, and one was a teacher prep day. So that is really the only difference. We still have the same amount of instructional days for students, the same amount of work days for teachers. All your major holidays are the same. It just really boiled down to those 4 days.
I don't see anybody getting too worked up about that.
No, we can vote for either one.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, so that said, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the calendar option 2 for the 2021-22 school year.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. And a second?
A second.
Ms. Peters, any other questions or comments? All in favor? Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alice.
Uh-huh.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, I would like to move us into a closed session, so I do need a motion. And Jennifer is not here. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Perfect. And I need a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. All in favor? All right, the time is 6:12. All right, let's do this.
Okay.
now I call, we have come out of closed session, it is 6:27 PM. Let the records show that no decisions were made. We are now moving on to items 7B and 7C.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that the board accept the recommendation of the superintendent to propose a termination of Ronald Robles, 2020-2021 non-chapter 21 contract. I further move that Mr. Robles be suspended without pay pending a possible request for a due process hearing. Should Mr. Robles request a hearing pursuant to FBISD policy DCE, I move that the matter be placed on the agenda for the April 29th, 2021 board meeting. Finally, I move that the board direct the superintendent to provide the required notices to Mr. Robles under policy DCE in the event he requests a hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hooper, and a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Needham. All in favor? And let's quickly take care of item 10, personnel recommendations. I need a motion for that, please.
I'll make a motion to approve personal recommendations.
Thank you.
Second.
And a second for Mr. Morgan. All in favor? Now we are moving into board workshop, team of 8. Turn that over.
You want me to do?
I think this is like 3 weeks.
Okay, so, I have created an overview of the listening and learning tour that has taken place the past month, past 5 or 6 weeks really. And what I've done is I've included the back, information I received from, students and campuses and departments. We went through the SWOT analysis, if you remember, we went through that process with the community, or we at least talked about it with the community. I don't think we actually did the SWOT. But we talked about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so, in each section, and you have a copy with you so that you can refer to if you'd like and take notes. But the first section, or slide after each section has the student feedback, so you'll have junior high on one side and high school on the other. And then I get into each of the campuses and departments. I did share this today with the junior high ambassador council because they were with me today. They came in here, I fed them lunch, we did a mock board meeting today. And I shared this slide and others that had the student information, just so that they could see that their feedback was gonna be shared with you tonight and also with our community advisory council tomorrow. They were very happy to see that what they had stated in that first meeting, it wasn't today, because I think Shirley was with me when we did the first one with them. They were happy to see that their information was included. So you can see that the strengths, they talked about their teachers quite a bit. I also created a Wordle over there. You'll see strengths is over there.
Yeah.
And I only did it for the students on that one, because I wanted them to see that today. And then you'll see opportunities, and over here you'll see the weaknesses and the threats. And so I just copied what they had included here and then dropped it into that word art. The words that come up the most are the ones that are gonna be the biggest on those pieces of art.
Are they ordered any particular way on the slides? For instance, in the junior high, it says athletics first. Is that because it's an A or because?
It's just the way they talked, just as
Okay.
we had conversation with them. I
As
didn't
they came.
manipulate it in any way. We had someone document the notes, and that's how I typed it into this. So they talked about athletics, they're caring teachers, extracurricular, the junior high was the credits that they offer for high school credit at the junior high campus. They liked the fact that all the campuses are close, but you'll see that that's also a weakness because of traffic, but they wanted to mention that they like being close to each other. And just like today, they were able to just come over by a bus, dropped off at the front, and come to visit and then go back to class. High school walked down last week, walked over and met me here. And then you'll see the high schools on the right-hand side. Again, teachers were, the teachers who care. They did want to say that about their teachers because they know what they've been through for COVID and how much their teachers have helped.
Before you go on, I'm surprised at the high school. It shows up on the junior high, wide variety of extracurricular activities. I'm surprised that doesn't turn up at the high school because we have so many, and it seems like you can pick any one and it's like standout, popular, big deal, whether it's ROTC, band used to be, maybe a little less now. Athletics for sure, the academics, the arts, the performing arts and so forth. I'm surprised that didn't pop up.
Yeah, I think they had one thing on their mind, and if you'll remember, Shirley, when we talked to them, they wanted to make sure we knew that they loved their programs, but they felt like they needed more advertisement for those programs. So they wanted more posters in the hallways, they wanted to be able to sell, what they were doing. And
The extracurricular.
yes.
Yeah.
Clubs, they wanted posters for clubs, and there's nothing in the hallways, and so I think they were thinking, how do we make that better? And they didn't put it under strength, they didn't bring it up.
Okay.
And you'll see it in the next section. Okay, so then here I just combined, we had notes from all of the different meetings from the campuses and departments, and so just copied and pasted onto here so you can see word for word it was said. A lot, and I'll just spotlight some of them. A lot of them thought that our technology was a strength because the technology department, because they've helped so much with what we've been going through, and then trying to get as many Chromebooks into the hands of our students, and then helping teachers go through the situation that we've been in. Administration listens, when an issue's brought up, they tend to get fixed. Teachers, they gave teachers, of course, as a strength, their teaching, their patience, and their attitude. They felt discipline and accountability was strong. Campus leadership, technology response, you see it again. Small town feel, community tradition. Our people, dyslexia, clubs and opportunities for students outside the school day, being able to meet, there's one, being able to meet with the superintendent to give input, not happened before. Nice teachers and staff, approachable, improved bus situation, well-maintained buildings, maintenance staff are assigned to campuses, which is something that they just implemented recently. Teamwork and transportation, adjustment and routes, people and the relationships, close in proximity. We're all Hornets, great students, campus care, special ed services, opportunities to attend. So you can see just a running theme through the strengths, feeling supported, resiliency,
Wow. That's a lot.
caring teachers, big school district that has a small district feel, student academic opportunities, highly qualified teachers.
My favorite was that they don't feel micromanaged. That was good.
What's
Yeah.
that?
Trust in teachers and aren't micromanaged. That's good.
Students and staff learned name of new staff member. Students are respectful. There's a real sense of pride in the department and the school district. Weaknesses, again, students on the left or junior high, right is high school. You see number 3, the bullet. Kids don't know about clubs, volleyball tryouts, that's junior high. But if you go over to the other side, lots of drama, aging campuses, not enough teachers.
That's from the kids.
They were talking about AP courses and having 30 to 35 kids in AP courses because we think, oh, those kids can handle it. The kids in AP, because they choose to be in those classes, they should be able to handle it. And they were talking about how when we stack it that high, then the kids can't participate because there's no time. There's so many kids, they can't all give input, which I thought was really good to hear. Wasted time in prerequisite courses. They feel like those are just, it's a waste of time to have to do prerequisite, but those are required. And we talked a little bit about college, I think, at that time, and how you're gonna have prerequisites there. Advertise clubs and organizations, that's where they were talking about the posters.
Communication is a big one.
Yeah, you'll see it throughout.
The bottom, yeah.
Website, need pages for clubs and organizations. So that's the student info there, and then here come all the campuses and departments. If you go through, you'll see, no physical room to expand, we're landlocked, decline declining enrollment, congestion, traffic, see all that info on traffic.
It's been so bad.
Tendency to be reactive instead of proactive, good ideas but plans don't progress, turnover, training for teachers and subs and technology, sustaining technology, paper use, communication, staff training, AC,
High insurance rates.
old infrastructure,
What's the insurance
high
up there?
insurance rates, bottom of the last, almost the last bullet, traffic, parking, lack of communication, again, changes to processes and procedures, traffic again, employee retention, need more staff, pay rate, incentives, lack of safety meetings, we're working on that. Mentorship program, PD to help teachers learn from each other. Lack of substitutes, there's technology, health insurance, pay, engineering course offerings and clubs.
Can you back up
Traffic.
one and hold on that one for a second? I'm
Uh-huh.
looking at the pay. Discrepancies used to be small enough that you wanted to stay regardless of pay. Discrepancies are becoming bigger.
Yeah.
That's something we need to be looking at.
We need to pay. for.
The other thing that they brought up there was the pay scale stops at year 20. And if those teachers that have more than 20 years leave, it's because they're going to school districts that have 20 to 30 on their scale. And they've made sure to bring that up.
That's been going on for a long, I mean, when I hit 20, that was it.
Yeah.
We've been doing that for a long time.
Traffic, RTI, stipends, substitute pay, health insurance, mental health resources at the lower campuses for students. Campus calendars are not updated, or again, they're talking website. Traffic, pay, benefits, communication, so you can see a running theme to most of these. Teacher pay one-to-one, education foundation, they want it back. They want the
Yes.
grant opportunities.
What is one-to-one?
One-to-one technology.
Oh,
Health insurance, employee benefits, a bond for facilities. Systems. Technology, copiers, we've had a lot of discussion about copiers. Textbooks, maps, technology resources are outdated, needs to be modernized. Technology, infrastructure, people in the department don't feel part of the entire school district. The way
Is
they-
that a specific department?
Opportunities. These are from the students. Better balance of class time, college and career classes, balanced types of classes. At the junior high, you have to remember that they did a block schedule this year because of COVID.
Uh-huh.
And some were for it, some were against it, so some of that's coming out here.
I saw that on one of the earlier slides,
Uh-huh.
that they get what they've learned.
Yeah.
I could see that,
Yeah.
especially like mathematics, things like that, where you need
Yeah.
lots of
Because
practice.
you don't have
Yes.
it every day and they wanna go every day.
They wanna go every day.
They're going
Sure.
back,
We're
they're going back to
they
regular.
wanna- They are?
Uh-huh.
Oh, good.
Next year.
Good.
FFA, Avid, anonymous alerts, compete in band every year, Apply Texas session with Del Mar.
what is Avid?
Avid is a program for helping students with note-taking and time management.
We used to do that, didn't we?
Cornell Notes,
Did we quit doing it?
quit a while back, they'd like it back. Provide excellent customer service for students, get input through Twitter accounts. Social media was a big one with the students. They talked about Twitter and Instagram, even some that we hadn't even heard of.
I don't know.
TikTok, I think, was one.
TikTok.
That we're
They're all
pushing.
about
I'm like,
TikTok.
oh. Okay, so that's their
What
work
did we put
there
in it?
on opportunities.
When you dance for TikTok?
And then here's,
I'm not into social media.
campuses and departments. They did bring up opportunities, they brought up the continuous K through 12 Oceans program. They were happy to see that was moving forward. Natatorium for scuba diving classes. Elementary is interested in sending kids to the natatorium for swimming. As
So
part
pa-
of PE.
That would be
Pause
great.
for 1 second. So campuses, departments, tell me who's in this group.
So I met with every single campus, gave teachers an opportunity to come to those listening sessions. So
So-
every campus,
So this is every campus, that would include all of the faculty, and who else?
and then nutrition, technology, PIO, maintenance, transportation, custodial,
So virtually all
Everybody.
faculty and staff in the district.
everybody,
Okay,
This is amazing.
good.
everybody.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out
And now
what
today,
segments.
today they got the survey through Google form, so, and they were told at the listening sessions that they were gonna get a survey that is anonymous, and they can, even the ones who don't have computer access are gonna get the survey on paper. They're gonna have a drop-off box with a lock on it, they can drop it, no one will know who put it in there, and then we'll get those as well.
And the survey's gonna cover what?
Same thing, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities,
Oh,
and threats.
okay. So additional,
Same questions.
additional input will be coming.
Additional input. Partnerships, FFA again came up here, came up from the students, it's coming up from, staff as well.
Very cool.
Trauma enforced training, year-round calendar came up, increased salary, paraprofessional pay, we're gonna have to look at that.
What is trauma-enforced training?
How to handle, or how to deal with trauma on the campuses.
Okay,
If there's trauma that happens, if there's an event that occurs, and we do have some available resources that are out there, we just need to, roll them out. TEA offers some training for free. Employees contribute to students to attend district-sponsored summer campus, or camps, utilize staff and students for branding. Transfer students as long as it doesn't sacrifice rigor that is already in place. Getting in free at events.
I'm always for that.
Who is it, right?
Yeah.
Wellness program, they would like a wellness program. Training security guards to be crossing guards, so that we could have more in the district. Finish up back service road for buses to load and unload students, get them off the main road. Opening up Deborah Lane, connecting the two streets. John Deere tractors, gators, and golf carts instead of vehicles to get around. Emergency channel on the walkie-talkies. Bus is an extension of the classroom. Our bus drivers were, you can tell that's all the bus department there, the transportation. They want us to stress to the students that the rules that you follow in school should be followed on the bus. You're not finished until you get off the bus.
yep.
So I thought that was a great point, valid point. Bus safety drills used to occur. We need to get those back on. Uniforms, bus aids, monitors, first aid, CPR training, motivational speakers, student management.
What is that last one? What are they talking about?
They'd like to have a motivational speaker on how to manage different types of students.
On the bus.
No, this was now going into a
Just
campus.
in general?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Gonna say, yeah.
18+ program, instructional technology department, or person at each campus, having like an IT person. We have technology, but we don't have those that know how to tie software into pedagogy, and that's what they're asking
Oh.
for.
That's a great idea.
Community partnerships, job fairs for recruitment at colleges, universities across the state, and they know that we go to some, but they're more regional in our area, but they're saying, go up to College Station, start recruiting further, because we need more people. Community partnerships, NAS, CC tutoring programs, we're talking about some of the resources we used to have, the partnerships and bringing them back. General education work program, we were talking about when we were kids, and we used to go to school like 4 periods and then work.
And then you work, yeah.
They'd like to see that again.
Can you go back to that one, do we not get the student teachers the way we used to it?
We do, but they'd like to see more.
Okay.
And so I've met with campus CC, and we also had them present to our principals. Oceans program at high school, they'd like to see that. Year-round school came up again. Mental health services, let the community know what's going on around FBI ISD. Tech teaching opportunities and conference held during the school year. So in other words, teachers teaching teachers. Grants, Education Foundation came up again, hosts mentoring program, teacher mentoring program, a tutoring bus, a computer lab on wheels, and a library on wheels, or a bookmobile.
Oh, I love bookmobile.
And we do have, several buses that are on auction right now that we can pull. They haven't gone to auction yet, but they're ready for auction, that we could pull to be able to do something.
Do we still have our Maureen tutoring bus, the old
We do. Free meals for all students, new kitchen makeover, attracting the students' eyes, making a more exciting environment in our cafeterias, having a fifth line at the high school, tacos, pizza, Subway.
That is gonna be a popular one.
That's for the teachers.
Other places to eat at the high school, outside or common areas.
Oh, yeah.
Future grants, need to be able to take debit and credit cards
Oh,
for nutrition. FAQ for parents and teachers to help them understand the rules and regulations. Second chance breakfast program.
What is that?
Giving opportunity for students to have like a midday breakfast and not just in the morning. And then also we talked about dinner for some of our kids. So, I mean, there's several opportunities that we need to be looking at.
What's the idea with the midday
I think
breakfast?
it's for
Is it
those
the
kids that like go to athletics and then they roll in, they have like a late, they can't get breakfast right.
Oh, so they're missing, oh, okay.
Threats to FBISD from students, cost of living, cost of housing, parents losing their jobs, the roads being closed, traffic, close start of school time for campuses. They'd like to see a staggered schedule. It's coming from the kids.
That makes sense.
yeah, we've been saying that to the chief.
Other districts with bigger, better facilities are close by, and that's what's taking the kids away from us. We know that. Depression. Not all students are seeking mentors, but all of them need them. Advertising. Kids using Bluetooth to hack into smart TVs, making us aware of some of these,
Yeah, they were telling us these things.
Lack of communication, need district Instagram. Parents are the reason kids aren't back. Need a reason to bring them back in person. Virtual learning. They're talking about their friends that are still virtual. They want them back. And then
The
there's-
depression thing is interesting. That was from kids.
Yeah.
And I noticed a few times counselors or the lack of counselors were mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
What's the status at the high school in particular? How many counselors do we have and what do they do?
We have 4 counselors, 1 LPC, and then in the district, we have 1 social worker. And that's where we need to beef it up if we're gonna beef it up. Because the counselors, especially at the high school, are doing so much of the course guidance and college prep
They're not, yeah.
and testing, and, you know, even the elementary, they're doing testing for GT, testing for dyslexia, they're doing a lot of testing.
Not for counseling.
And they said not all will add, what did they say, not all will seek mentors? Is there something where the
Students,
kids
some
can
of the
ask
kids-
right now?
The kids can seek help, but what they're saying is not all of them are gonna
Well,
seek, so if you're gonna have a
sure.
mentor program, do it across the board so everybody
For
gets one.
everybody.
I think that's a very good point. Everybody should be assigned, not have to ask.
Exactly.
But what you said about the counselors, that's been a problem for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's not just here.
For forever,
It's
pretty
everywhere.
much.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, they're just, when you break down the numbers of students each counselor's responsible for, I mean, there's no way it
Well,
works.
and the ratio, you're right, the ratio that TASB recommends, I think it's like 450 to 1 counselor, when you're looking at your staffing model.
Well,
It's a
then
lot.
when the state went to just test after test after test, it eats their time up. When they were just giving the CAP test once a year,
Exactly.
that was
Well,
different.
I mean, their title is counselor. You know, I feel like that should be their primary goal, and I can remember when I was in school, that wasn't it. It was, that's where you go for your, you know, scholarship applications, and of course, it wasn't like I need to talk to someone.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe that, okay, so here we're on threats with the campuses and departments. So teacher pay, not competitive, there's that scale comment, stopping at 20 years, losing good teachers or can't hire good teachers, no stipends for extra committees, benefits, again, lack of substitutes, teacher retention and morale, and not enough counselors and social workers came up. inefficient technology in the classroom, benefits, insurance, you can see traffic again, paid traffic. Not feeling comfortable to speak our mind, being put in situations that you're not hired for, lack of communication, not enough bus drivers paid, there's insurance again.
Can we go back to stipends?
Go back one point.
Yeah, well, the stipends, so, we're not paying any stipends to like department chair people or,
We do for some,
okay.
but it is something we need to look at when we come to compensation plan.
Thank you.
Definitely.
And then one, go back again, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
One more. It said 50% of classroom-related special ed. Okay, that's, they're talking about in an inclusion classroom, and we've had that issue for too long.
Yeah, elementary campuses,
And this 50%, is that like 504 kids too?
yeah, they'll have like 50% of their class is inclusion, and then they have the 504 and regular ed. But there'll be like 4 or 5 teachers that are inclusion teachers, and it's a 50-50 split, which is a lot.
It's a lot.
It is. Thank you.
One of the comments, next slide, up at the top, is not feeling comfortable to speak our mind, not feeling comfortable to be open. You know, you've been doing interviews with people and trying to get a feel for things. I would assume that's coming from some specific place. And those kinds of comments drive me a little crazy because I want to understand why we don't have the openness, and it typically centers around a particular area.
Yeah, so if you look at the comments that follow, you can see
Is there that
what area.
organization? Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
and what I heard was that road right there split us.
okay.
Would,
We never crossed it. that kind of-
But there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, we've talked about that before, is that there was here and there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too has to do with their schedules, you know. They're here early morning, leave mid-morning, come back
Yeah.
afternoon, get on a route, come back late, you know.
But a lot of people in this office here wouldn't go over there, you know, in past times. And you know that from getting out in campuses, and I know that was a theme, so
And
that's why I asked.
that has come up, I mean, it's a thread, they wanna be included. They're not the
Absolutely.
only ones, you know, there were other departments that made that comment too.
Okay.
We don't feel like we're part of it, that kind of thing.
what is SHARS, Devon?
Oh gosh, you would get me on that acronym, but it is,
Is that the health thing?
yes, where Medicaid, if a student qualifies for Medicaid and they get services, they can bring us their forms and we can claim, that's claim as well and get money for the district for their services. Did I get that right?
Student health, I can't remember, but yeah, it's exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
You keep track of hours.
Anyone who qualifies for Medicaid,
So how is that a threat?
that is a threat, 'cause like parents won't share that with us, so then we can't claim that.
So we're just, it's more of a
We're missing-
missed
that's a
opportunity
missed
than a,
opportunity.
okay.
Backup one? Annualized pay?
Oh God, that was interesting, yes.
Yeah, that looks,
So that was a very interesting conversation. I was not aware of the fact that we had, our transportation department is on annualized pay. They used to be on hourly, so they would get paid for the hours that they work. Somehow that was spread out to annualized pay. So now their complaint was, I don't know what I'm getting paid for, because it's spread out. And so if I worked 40 hours, I don't know if I'm getting paid for the 40 hours I worked this week, or if it's coming in next week's pay. And so sometimes I get a paycheck and it's only $2.
And why did they do it that way?
Years ago, they decided to go that route so that they had money to be able to pay for their insurance. That's what I've been told.
Their health insurance.
And so we're gonna have to investigate what's the best way to move forward. Their claim is, we're adults, we know we're not gonna get paid in the summer, so we have other jobs, and we wanna get
Yeah.
paid what we work, so we
Fair.
understand, so.
well, and it could get tricky too, if because are we actually paying them hourly? I mean, do we document how many hours every person works and they get paid an hourly amount?
No, it's like an estimate, it's a range.
But
Because
does
they
it
don't-
get reconciled at some point? Because here's the problem, you can't have those people on salary.
They're not on salary, it's annualized pay, there's a difference.
There is a,
Okay.
there is a concept out there called annualized hours.
Okay,
And so, and there's other things like salary plus halftime and all
Right.
kinds of things, and you can do that with those types of
Okay.
non-exempt employees. I'm not sure how it works here, but I know it exists.
I worked for a company that got in a lot of trouble having people, hourly employees
There's a record keeping
on
requirement.
salaries.
There's a record keeping requirement that says you got to prove up that you're still meeting the obligation.
Right, and their biggest complaint is they can't tell, just looking at
Yeah.
their stub, how much they're getting paid.
And so if you can't see it, then how do you know? You're just taking it on faith that you're getting paid correctly. Yeah, I would see the problem with that, for sure.
Lower enrollment, these are all threats, large class sizes, substitutes pay,
Stopping it 20 years ago.
yep,
Substitute's not a good fit
System.
for the campus.
right.
Okay.
Athletic stipends,
Now, if you don't mind me asking, what do they mean by athletic stipends?
that were not comparable to other school districts.
Okay, we're not paying enough. Okay.
There's a big gap now between us and our neighboring school districts,
Okay.
so that's something we definitely.
And they're saying Fitz and Carroll, the new Carroll High School, I guess, the CHS.
Newer high schools, yes. That's Memorial and then Carroll.
We're going to see something from Carroll.
Criticism, not moving forward, and that's it. That's our
What do you mean by
threats.
which is the meaning?
I know, we'll see, when we
More
lose
than-
some to vets, I think we'll lose some to Carroll.
Okay.
And then we do have charter schools coming into the Corpus area. Okay, that's it for me. It's been a great experience. I will tell you
You've been
that
busy.
I have been busy,
Yeah.
but it's been really good to hear one-on-one from our employees, and I look forward to getting those surveys back too, to see if they add more to it.
So I saw a number of things up here. I mean, pretty much everything that's up there is worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
So is the plan to somehow address all of these things over some period of time?
So Buxton will walk us through how this all ties into what the community advisory and you all are working on when we set our belief statements and we start moving towards the goal, the mission, the vision. But this also is good for us as we move forward, because whatever doesn't rise to the surface, I'm assuming that, and doesn't get added as a goal or what have you, would then be addressed as a strategy by the superintendent and administration. So there's
The-
several
the-
things on here that come up, and you can see, we're gonna have to, have a strategy for transportation, we're gonna have to have a strategy on traffic control and things like that we're gonna have to address.
That's why I asked the question,
Yeah.
because we talked at the very beginning about how all of this was gonna be put down into, what, 3, 4, 5, 4? Yeah. So, I mean,
Lot of info.
naturally, there's potential for some of these things to fall by the wayside, and I think if people are willing to take the time and put it out there for us, and we need to give every single thing they put up there, if it's reasonable, some attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And then I did tell them that, I really like this process of getting out and listening to them, so my plan is to do it once a semester at each campus and each department.
Great.
Wow.
I'm gonna make a suggestion to you to include one other group that's consistently up there. Go talk to the substitutes.
That's a group we have not been able to bring in. I have to find a way to do that.
What is the substitute situation? I was interested to see them keep coming up too. Do we, I mean,
We don't have enough.
yeah, I thought there was just
We don't have enough substitutes, and then we don't pay as much as other districts, and so they're choosing to go somewhere else to sub.
They don't, one of the things that I would say, and I have a little bit of experience in this, because my wife does that, right? But they're not included in much of anything. And what I mean by that is if there's things that need to be, they're supposed to be an extension of the classroom somewhat, supporting us, not just getting through the day and managing the kids, but actually supposed to be teaching, right?
Right.
Well, that's not the case generally. And some of it falls on the teacher, some of it falls on administration, some of it falls on the substitute themselves. But I can tell you from what I hear, and I don't solicit this, I just get to hear it, you know? But I get to hear it, and I don't bring anything up here. I mean, I'm generally very quiet about it. But I will tell you that I think there's an opportunity, you know, you wanna know why you don't have substitutes, or you wanna know what some of your issues are. It's, yeah, hey, my wife's not doing it for the money, I can assure you. But even if you raise the money, it's not gonna change what she does. But the point is that there are things in how we handle them and how we treat them that is a big issue.
The things I heard, just echoing what George said, is pay. The other thing this year has been COVID.
Mhm.
That has been one, they've reached out, some of the retired teachers that I knew when I was first here have reached out, and it was COVID concerns.
But they also don't get any information on what we're doing.
Why couldn't we include them?
We can. I'm thinking
Yeah.
now, the survey we sent today, we can
Yeah.
email to them.
Yeah. I mean,
That's-
but we obviously have their contact
Yeah.
info.
Yeah. So
Well,
we
and
can do that tomorrow.
And even taking roll online, they weren't able, I don't know if they can do it now, but they weren't able to do that, but they still had to, you know, it was like, we don't trust you enough to take roll. And I don't know how that could be, it was kind of offensive to some of the people I know who said, some of them were retired teachers, some not. It was like, you know, all I'm doing is checking roll.
Right.
Jerry's making a great point, though, and I'm sitting here, is there any more thankless job than being a substitute teacher? And then if you don't feel like you're included or given responsibilities or trusted or invested in or paid well, why on earth would you do it, right?
It's a hard job.
Yeah, it's gotta be a terrible job.
Anyway, I'm not,
Imagine that.
I'm just saying, think about it, and if you
Mhm.
include some of them, I think it's a good
The
idea.
survey is one way.
Survey would be
We
great.
can send that tomorrow to their email addresses. That's not a problem. And then the listening sessions, you know, if they were on campus, they received a message that I was gonna be there that day. And we posted the listening sessions for the campuses, so.
You gotta remember, they're not in tune with most of that,
Right.
so they don't hear or see, I mean, they're walking in cold,
Yeah.
Mhm.
generally speaking, and they don't get communications in
Right.
general.
There are 3 additional listening sessions that I will be holding in the upcoming weeks. And we'll put out a video this Friday, and that's for parents and community. So, 2 morning sessions, coffee with the soup at the coffee shops, one on the island and one here. And then, an evening session at the ROTC Pavilion. Grab a lawn chair,
Nice.
come on up,
Very
let's
good.
talk. And that may be one where we total
When-
subs.
When you say coffee house of the island, you mean Island Joe's or Starbucks?
Island Joe's, and not Starbucks.
Just wanted to make sure.
Island Joe's.
Good for you.
Yeah. So that's coming in the next couple weeks. That's it for me. You're on, sir.
I'm gonna sit right there.
Go right ahead.
That's a lot of information.
Yes.
Thank you.
So now you get to solve all these problems for us.
Well, so I wanna say this, that, there's 1,029 school districts in the state of Texas. If you did the same thing, you're gonna get answers that look very similar to that everywhere.
Mhm.
Here's the difference is there's not very many boards that are actually looking at this information and having these conversations. And that's the answer to solving the problems, right? Is, Peter Singy, Phil Schlechte, those guys say that, when you say an organization is a learning organization, what you're really saying is it's a listening organization. And then Schlechte says even further that, leaders are listeners, and because they can understand what's going on. So, when we get through with the scorecard, and we're working tomorrow morning, is it? No, I'm good. Is it 8 o'clock in the morning or 9? 8, okay. We're working tomorrow morning with the senior leader team and the principals.
No, just the senior.
Just
leaders.
senior. And we'll start actually fleshing out those things, and this is where these things start coming into play. If you do think back on this, as you can condense all this down probably into 12 to 15 broad categories in each one, right?
Mhm.
And so you start looking at that, and then you figure out the most important things that you gotta address first. We call them WIGs, wildly important goals. And that if you don't get those accomplished, then nothing else. And so these will play into that. The substitute question, and the bus driver question, those are questions that you're gonna have to work out with how you work through the Texas Workforce Commission and those things, you know. The problem with, and this after the Affordable Care Act, substitutes, you've got to be very careful to not make them employees, so you don't have to then offer them access to the health care and.
But we do.
We do.
You do as long as you work enough hours in a year.
Correct, yeah. So, and then you gotta keep the hours, so all that's being
It's
said.
based on the look back period.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying. With those changes, most people are trying to be very careful about how they either do or don't that,
But we don't pay anything for them. They pay the full amount.
if they sign up for it, yeah.
But that's more, so to speak.
And then the bus driver, the smoothing the pay, came as a result that, there was an opportunity several years ago to where they would claim unemployment in the summer. And so now most people just do that in the contract with the employment agreement, just say, this is a 9-month seasonal job, there is no expectation of full-time in the summer, so you can take care of it with a legal document and go back to the hourly pay, so actually with that conversation right there, I told y'all were the GT group to begin with. Y'all are way ahead of where most people are. So let's do another little fun exercise though.
Before we do, I've got a question. You said, and I don't know if this applies, I don't know how serious you were when you said it, that if you were to do this in the 1,029 other school districts, that we see largely the same complaints coming through. And one of the big complaints that I see coming through is pay.
Is what?
Is pay. And I know, everybody knows, teacher pay is a problem. But I guess I want to know how big of a problem is that in our school district versus the other 1,028? Because when we're hiring teachers, you know, that's the marketplace, right? So, are there, and let me ask you this way, are there any big things that stood out in particularly the threats and weaknesses areas in this school district that you have not seen in other school districts?
No, everything that came in the threats area were things, I mean, and we have been in some places where there's been some really strange things that have popped up. But no, you guys, the threats that were listed are pretty much in line with what all communities have to deal with. Now, as far as your salaries go, have y'all done a TASB?
They did a salary survey 3 years ago,
And we're,
and that's staffing right now.
okay, so yeah, I thought y'all were doing the staffing study. That will help answer some of those questions, see where you fit in the scale.
Okay.
And you know, you got other, you need, in my opinion, I think Greg's opinion, we share this, that if you can just be in that top 30% pay in the area, and you don't have to be number one, you can just get in that top third, as long as the other stuff is taken care of, people will stay for that. If they're listened to, if they have the capability of growing professionally, and that doesn't mean getting out of the classroom, that means growing in their teaching. And then your auxiliary employees, especially if there's a pathway for them to move, people will come and stay. You don't have to be.
Do we know it for the top third? for our area right now?
I can find out through that salary study that was done 3 years ago. As a matter of fact, when we start our budget workshops, that's one of the things we'll bring to the table, is that last study that was done, so that we can review it. And I just wanted to point out that what Doug is saying is so true, because some of our teachers mentioned the fact that they're here is the autonomy that they have. They're not given a script to teach. They're not told, you have to teach it this way, and they recognize that. They have friends that are in other districts that talk to them, and they know that they have that autonomy that others may not. But they do want us to recognize that we have a bigger group hitting that 20-plus mark, or are getting close to it, and they're worried, and they feel like people will start leaving the closer they get to that mark.
The 20-year thing that we've been talking about, does that mean that once you hit 20 years, you no longer get pay increases?
You're capped out.
Top down.
Yeah, I got a real problem with that because
I did.
you got our best, most experienced teachers, and now you're capping them off.
That's right.
So they've got an incentive to leave already. And then you throw TRS into the mix because their highest averages are gonna determine their retirement pay. That's why Joe Kelly went to Katy. That's probably why other teachers leave.
What are they doing?
So I think that's a really dumb idea to have that cap.
Well, they, yeah.
They go to 30 or-
Some districts will go to 25, some will go to 30.
Depends on what your
The
retention-
median
what your
pay
retention
is
is.
like on percentages that they give. The higher tenure you have, you're gonna be getting less of a raise, even with your tenure, but they're getting something.
Yeah.
For our really good teachers,
The area-
20 years is barely, a
Nothing.
little
Does
over
everybody else
halfway.
go higher
How
than
long
20
did you
in our
teach?
area?
Right at 30.
I couldn't tell you.
Well,
Thirty.
I
Couldn't
when you
give
get
you
the
facts
classroom
right
and
now,
two
but I
had to
could
turn
look
it
it
up
up
and
and
see.
see.
Okay, so you got a
I
late
haven't
start.
looked, but I can answer no.
Yeah.
Alicia was
The-
38.
20 is
At
the
least,
norm.
at least
think.
half or
37.
She
more
took some
are
time
at that
off.
20.
The thing I would say about
I would say 7 or
Buck
50.
is saying is that the themes that you see here is the same thing you see in every one of these sessions, regardless of what business you're in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because I'm sitting here watching this, I'm like, okay, what kind of organizational issues do we have here? You always hear about pay, no matter who you go to, whether it's a hourly workforce or a salary workforce. You'll hear something about even in facilities. I mean, it's funny, all the things, we don't hear about substitutes obviously, but the themes are the same. And every organization can address those.
When you're
which is
talking
good.
about taking a tenured teacher out of the classroom and replacing them with a new teacher.
No, I'm not arguing that.
No, I know that.
What I'm suggesting, what I would suggest is that we do exactly what everybody else does, which is go out there and get the surveys and try to come up with what makes sense. And my comment was gonna be, Mike, is we always targeted the top 40%, not 33, but 40%. And we never, as long as all the other things were in line, you never had a problem. So it's right in line from an outside business. private
I know
sector.
several years ago, we had a whole bunch of tenured teachers retire.
Oh, yeah.
That was the C-scope days.
Yes, it was like 17
Yep.
at least.
We
We lost a bunch of really good
For the
people.
first time ever, we far exceeded the state. We had
Yeah.
never done that before.
Yep.
Well, and anecdotally, I heard the same things when I was coming onto this school board. What is most important to the teachers? And it was purely anecdotal, but I was shocked because I expected to hear pay, 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 pay. And maybe it was the recoil from C-scope that had just recently happened. But yeah, teacher autonomy was top of the list.
Yeah.
I was floored by it. And so that's, I guess, why I'm taken aback now to see pay as such a big issue. And
That's
I want
'cause
to make
everything
sure
else is
that we're.
Moved up.
I mean, I know
The economy's
everybody.
taken care of.
Yeah, I get that.
Everything
but-
else is settled down now.
Which I get, and pay, you can always be happier, being paid more, but,
And tell you
I
what,
wanna
for-
know if we are in the top third.
And again,
That's-
for teachers, correct me if I'm wrong, but what William Anderson teachers is their last, 3 years?
5 years now.
Is it 5 years?
But it's not their last, it's their highest.
Highest.
Highest,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
And so that's why they want to get that income up.
Sure.
Yeah, for just about anybody, there's probably not very many people still working who are on the 3-year. Most are gonna be on the 5-year. I was on 5-year at the university. And man, I'll tell you what, when you start looking at, that's gonna determine what I'm gonna get paid for the rest of my life. You think working a couple extra years to get more Social Security is an issue? When you average out your 5 highest salaries and you can go someplace and get a $10,000 a year raise,
You bet.
it adds up. Because a lot of these teachers that work a long time, they'll wind up getting 80% of their average. So if you get another $10,000 in there, that's $8,000 a year extra income,
For as long as you live.
as long as you live.
But you don't get pay raises, COLAs.
What's that?
Do you get COLAs with, your retirement?
No.
I didn't think so, yeah.
No, I got
Every once in a
52
while.
cents last.
They-
last
they
year.
adjusted
I got
it.
eight, so that's why it's
Hey.
important to get out of
Sure.
here.
Oh, yeah, you gotta get it up front.
Yeah.
But it's a big incentive, and
Yeah.
that's why that capping people at 20 years, I think, is a really dumb policy. And maybe 25 or 30, but 20, you got a lot of years after that. I don't wanna lose a bunch of 20-year teachers.
There is ways to do, we can help you, we got some, the people that are big in the budget side, in the office. There are ways to do it without making it into a scale,
Right.
so then you're not,
Locked in.
locked in.
Mhm.
Because, every once in a while, the legislature and their
Mhm.
brilliance
Infinite wisdom.
comes up with this idea that whatever your schedule is, that's your lock, like they did today on the floor, and in the House, and so, but there are other ways where you can reward those teachers if they stay, but not lock it in. But they also get counted towards TRS, which is what, is what they really want. So. This is really, y'all are having better conversations than I could ever lead with this governance tool. Because y'all are now striking at the heart of the matter. Here are the things that the organization wants to improve. By listening to the organization, that's where you find out what it is that you have to get to, right? Now, Peter Singh is also correct that if everything matters, then nothing matters. So you gotta take this list, know it's on the list. It may not get addressed the first year or the second year, but it's still on the list. But you gotta prioritize where you're gonna go after, and make in the second part, maybe the most important part, is that once you figure out how you're gonna measure it, you have to report about it and talk about it. So that even if it's still not where you want it to be, you're still honest and your community hears you, your teachers hear you. Yes, we understand that on the surveys that we started here, and we want to be here, and we're not there yet, but so we're going to do these things to make that happen. So on all my district surveys as superintendent, I'm not putting pressure here, but I made them put on that survey a line that says, what do you think of the leader, Buck Gilcrease? And, it was a 5-point Likert scale. And the vast majority, the first time you do it, the vast majority will be in that neutral, And I told my staff, I said, look, I'm gonna move them off of neutral, one way or the other. We're gonna move them off of neutral. And you just have to, and you gotta be that intentional. Or things across the state, at the other districts, there's a whole lot of districts that are just status quo. They're not gonna change, they're not gonna do anything. The same stuff comes up over and over, and 10 years from now, it's gonna be the same stuff coming up over and over. And they're just gonna ride the wave and then wait it out. So, but if you wanna move to that next level, this is how you do it.
And we do want to move to
I know that. I mean, you guys, you guys have a special thing going here, and you need to keep that going, because I think they're on the verge of making those strides that make that happen. So,
I see our biggest limiting factor is revenue. I mean, that's what always comes up, because, everybody at this table, I think, agrees that state averages and stuff, that's not good enough. And, we want to take care of our faculty and our staff and pay more insurance and give them raises, and we want to take care of our facility. It always comes back to we just don't have the revenues that we need. And I don't know how you address that.
There aren't enough bake sales. That's for sure.
Well, you address it with the tax rate.
I mean, at the
I
end
mean,
of the day, if it
that's-
requires a TRE, that's what it requires.
But can you even do that now?
Yeah. There's mechanisms, yeah.
I thought
You
they
have
had kind of locked that down in that legislation that passed a couple years back.
Well, it's no new revenue based on existing, but you can go out for an increase, and the
Mhm.
public can vote for it based on just M&O.
Get the pennies.
Yeah, get the pennies.
The golden
Yeah.
pennies.
And then you can do a bond to get facilities, I mean, there's ways to make it happen, but we're gonna have to get the public on board.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to crow about, we have the lowest tax rate in the region, but
Yeah.
if you're not able to pay your teachers and you lose good teachers because when your buildings are falling down and, you're not feeding your kids or whatever,
Yeah.
then no,
No.
it's not something to be bragging about. Anyway, food for thought.
We can help talk with that too. There's some options, that you can do, and it doesn't, depends on what happens in the legislature. But there are some options right on the table as a declared disaster, so we can help guide that and then bring that back as a conversation, so. So on this good governance inventory, just so you look at it, this is based upon a book by Campbell and Fullen called The Governance Core, and this is what's called the mindset of good governance. And so it falls into these 6 broad categories, and most of the time we do it all together. If some boards, we have them do it individually because there's clear divisions on the board, there's not here. And so like if you look at 1, the board has formally adopted beliefs, statements, mission, and vision. Well, we can answer that in a couple of weeks. You guys are going to adopt this, right? Because that's what the community group's working on.
We do have an old one, we have all of that, it's just not been done in 10 years.
Yeah, way out of
10
date.
years.
Well, and that's, so number 2 then, that are regularly reviewed as part of our board meeting process is gonna be a no, right? And then the 3 is usually the problem on this one, because most people don't know what their beliefs, mission, and vision are, so they don't know whether their actions align with it, because it's just not something that happens.
Well, and one of the things we requested a while back, I don't remember when, was that we, on our, whenever we have our items that we're voting on, whatever it is, the goal has to be listed. And so now those district, the objectives and the goals are listed so that the board member can see those, but still, over time, the big picture disappears.
Yeah.
We can get focused, and you still go back to just kind of now compartmentalizing this particular thing, but you still need to make it play back into this. So to always know the vision, which we don't really have a vision statement, I'm going to say that for sure. We don't really have we have a motto, but we don't have a
Right.
vision statement.
Mhm.
I mean, every child is worth my best, is that what it is? Every child's worth my best. That's a great motto, but it didn't put us anywhere forward.
That's not aspirational.
No, no.
So we would even recommend that you start your board meetings with, when we get the 6 beliefs, as your call and roll with the board, one person reads the student, every board
Like
meeting
that.
reads the belief. The board president then reads the mission statement, and then everybody together recites the vision. And so it
This is a reminder.
just focuses, after the prayer, pledge, and all that, is just a reminder of why we're here,
Mhm.
what we're supposed to be talking about. And it will help if you have one of those nights where, those nights.
Yeah. Helps bring you back together
it-
at the beginning.
It helps you guys, and then it also helps the
Everybody else,
audience.
too.
Yeah, yeah.
When that trickles through the organization, because then we can do it at meetings and, with administration and with teachers.
Just like saying the pledge, pulls us all together. I mean, that's why I love it that we still do the pledge. I know some schools don't, but it's that one thing that brings us all together as Americans, as Texans, you know, and so this is, no, I love that idea. And it's gonna be a little corny at first, but you're gonna get used to it.
You know, I think people will be shocked if they see that the board of this organization is clearly stating every meeting what they believe, where they're going,
This is what we do.
every time we get together.
So what Velma said, that would be great. Like I said, she takes that to her staff, and it trickles down to everybody. It's understood.
It's worked for the Boy Scouts for years.
Yep.
But I agree, it does have to start with us, it starts at the top.
That's right.
Yeah, and you're right, Shirley, it will feel corny, at least for me. But the thing is, corny works sometimes,
It does.
and it's
You'll get
actually
everybody's
helpful.
attention to go, hey, did we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I-
that's good.
Well, and y'all are, again, the GT group, you're skipping ahead, but, another recommendation we would make is that you guys develop a scorecard for the board based on this. And at least twice a year, when you're reporting out your hours for continuing ed, you also report where the board is on getting all of these into yeses, if that makes sense. And so, look at number 2. And you see the 2-1, 2-2, and 2-3. What would be the answers to those?
Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got no's on all of them.
Yep.
Now, so when we met with the senior leaders and the principals the first time, and tomorrow we'll really get into this. We're talking about outcomes. In the education world, we're very good at telling you what our inputs are. We can list all the programs that we do and look at all, and we get confused that that's the outputs or the outcomes, and it's not. The programs are how you're gonna get these outputs, and these outputs then lead to your outcomes. And so I think it's important for the board to be able to verbalize the most important outcomes that the district has, right? We're gonna increase student reading across the board by 2%. That type of specificity. So when you're stuck in the elevator and people are asking you, let me tell you what we're doing. We are gonna improve student reading, math, and writing by 2% this year.
You just solved our problem with land, we just go up, we use elevators.
And
Done and done.
if we think even further, I mean, I always find myself thinking, and I think this about this time of year because we're getting ready for graduation. Every kid who walks across that stage, did we put everything in that kid that we could possibly put in to him or her? To help them be able to, for me, it would be to seek the truth in whatever they do. Whatever they do. And did we give them the skills to do that? So I look even further than just, is it this, the kid is, to me, our product. When those kids go out, what are we sending out into the world? Because even if they go to work at the hamburger joint, I don't wanna have to open my bun every time to see if they got the order right. I'd rather just be able to know it's right.
I say it this way, when I'm in the nursing home, I want them to be able to count my pills correctly. So look at number 3. What do you think?
Yes and no, it depends. I think we use data. I don't know that everything we do is data driven. I can say that it's probably not. We regularly assess our progress in good governance. I think that's kind of, it's informally done, not, and I say that, maybe not.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Go ahead.
Well, I just have a remedial question. The 3 essential roles in an aligned school system, all that's capitalized. I wasn't here last time, maybe I just missed it completely. What are they?
I think it's in that, it's in the email that, Greg
Oh, okay.
sent to you.
Forwarded out, yeah,
and
yeah,
it-
yeah.
And so if you,
Okay.
for your copy of it, but it basically just says that in any organization, you have 3 roles, right? And one is the strategic level, and that is the board and the superintendent in the school district. And then the second one is the tactical level, and the tacticians are her senior leaders that have the expertise. And then the third is the operational level where things happen. And so most boards don't have, there's a lot of boards that have adopted operating guidelines. Most of them don't have anything to do with understanding their role as strategy, these people's role as tacticians. And so,
Okay, sorry, I didn't,
And we
thank
can-
you for
So
reminding
ultimately,
me.
the
but-
answer's still no.
well, we can help with that. We've got some former board members that work with us, and we put together the 7 commandments of board operating procedures, and it's just pretty simple, you know, if I hear something, I gotta tell her, and it just kind of rolls through, so.
I think that they all do it, we just don't have it written.
Yeah, it's not formal, that's why,
That's-
informally, I think we
They
do
live,
it.
they live that.
Yeah, you know, I'm sitting here thinking, and the answer to too many of these is no. And I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, how did that happen? And then it dawns on me, yeah, you got to go back to before Joe left, since we've done these things. Because Brian didn't do any of it. David here wasn't here long enough to get his feet on the ground to do any of it. And then with interims and so forth, this was not the focus.
No, we have been in an up and down situation for a while, just trying to keep the ship.
I would say at
I have
least-
shared- I have shared with Shirley since my time on the board. Basically, we've been, and Joe was tremendous. I thank God he was here.
Yeah.
But for me, my observation is that I had a superintendent that was ready to retire for the most part, except for David.
Mhm.
So now we're ready to roll.
Now, and that's what
We're ready to
we were
roll.
talking about you.
Yeah,
It was a good way, because now we're ready to roll.
it's been seat of the pants, survival
Yes.
mode
Yes.
for
Yeah.
a long time. And I wish, I'm gonna write it down one of these days. When did Brian start?
16?
Was it 16?
What are we in now, 21? I don't know.
What year did he,
Jen and
how long
I-
was he in that role?
Jen and I came on in 16.
That it would've
Or
been-
I'm sorry, we were elected in 16
I
and
know-
came on right there in 17.
I don't know, we
didn't
can,
Would've been
we
17.
can go back and think about that.
Anyway, that's just the time, I'm just trying to assign a time frame to it, because I'm looking at these things and going, no, 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 and then thinking, gosh, what happened? And then
So
it's
here's
like,
my-
start backtracking, it's like, oh yeah, all those things happened.
Well, here's the comment I'm making. You had some of this before, and it was just 4 years ago. Let's just call it 4 years, round numbers. And we're not doing them today. We don't have a system set up so that no matter who's in the role, no matter who's on the board, it's what we do. It's
That's a
just
true
what we
statement.
do.
And that's right, that's correct.
That's a true statement.
2016.
It was 16?
So,
That's what I'm talking about.
I like systems where it's a plug and play almost, you know.
Right,
whether
and
it's
that's what we
Jerry
need to
Hooper
do,
or-
because we're gonna have continuity with the board. You know, we've gotta do that. We've
No one's
got to
gonna
do
retire
this.
here, so we're gonna have continuity of superintendent level too.
Yeah.
There you go.
You are not retiring.
But not anytime,
No,
not
here,
anytime
saying I'm
soon.
retiring from here.
Are you saying she retired when she got the job?
No, I did not.
Anything but,
That's
but that's a
right.
joke.
No, because I'll just have to be able to knock it on the door.
Sadly, she may be on the 3 highest averages.
No.
You're a 5er?
No, she
I'm
doesn't.
not gonna- yeah,
She
she's
doesn't
fine.
want-
Never
No,
mind.
hey, I've kidded with her a little bit, she does not even wanna discuss it.
I do not.
Don't go there.
Hard for.
I'm teasing.
Well,
Teasing.
one last thing on 3.3 is, the last word of 3.3 is outcomes. Again, we're gonna help talk about that consistently. that it's about outcomes.
Absolutely.
And it's not about which reading program you're using
Right.
or who went to a conference and got the biggest,
Latest
newest
and greatest.
fad.
Right.
It's gonna be outcomes, and so, and your job is gonna be to say, okay, all that's great, but you said we were gonna move it 2%, and
The
did-
operations do it.
yeah, yes or no?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty.
That's good.
So-
I like
Well,
that.
one of the things that's gonna have to happen for that is we're gonna have to figure out our data reporting. Because right now, we just get covered up with raw data. Whatever the state prints out, we get handed that. And, I mean, you can go through that stuff and it just makes your brain hurt,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think we've kind of expressed that we like the story behind the numbers more than we like the numbers,
Yeah.
because that's useful to us.
But the goals and objectives are gonna lead to that, right? I mean, you're gonna have them, and in my world, it's red and green, you know? It's either green and you've met it, or it's red and you have a deficiency. There's no yellows and there's no oranges, it's one or the other, it's binary. So I'm assuming that's where we're headed.
That's, yeah, it's that way. So you have 4 perspectives, right? Student achievement, staff satisfaction, community satisfaction, and then financial transparency. So if you think about it, 2 and 3 can be grouped together fairly easily. So then every January, you ought to hear a report on student achievement. February, it ought to be about staff and community,
Yeah.
right? March is financial transparency. Turnaround April is back to student achievement. So you're just rolling every 3 months, you're hearing, and that should be a
We
done.
need a water.
We talked about
No,
after the
I'm good.
beliefs,
Thanks.
mission, vision read at the board. In our opinion, that should be the very next thing you do, is one of her staff stands up and gives you
The rip,
6 to 8 minutes. We're not looking for a lecture. It's 6 to 8 minutes of here's where we are, and the last part is be honest. If you're not there, just say, we're not, it's red.
So here's a question. All the data that I've seen comes in by grade level, and they're comparing year to year to year. So how do you account for the differences in class dynamics? Like, the group of kids that's in the 2nd grade this year might be horrible. And so next year it might be a great cohort, right? You get these
Right, and-
groupings.
Yeah, but as a teacher and then as a board member, it's probably my fault that we get all those numbers because I request them, because I do know how to read those those reports. I wanna see this group of kids and what they've done.
And track them.
That's
Yeah.
why I said at the end, I wanna, this senior who's graduating, did we do everything we were supposed to do all the way through until that one walked out the door?
See, and that's what I'm talking about, because when I first started doing this, I'm looking at like 2nd grade scores year over year over year over year.
It doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything, because it's not the same kids. You have to track them as they go through.
Cohort trend report.
Because every class, I've heard this over and over from teachers, including the one I'm married to, every year you get a different group of kids, and some years they're really good and really smart, and some years you can't wait to get rid of them.
Yeah, you've been hearing about them the whole time they were coming up, but anyway.
I've got that seems like a specific instance of a more general problem that I am seeing. That what Jerry said is very attractive to me as a scientist, that I would love to have binary, it is or it isn't. But what I've come to learn over my short tenure here is that in education, it's not like physics. It's not yes or no answers. It's much more fuzzy social stuff. There's always a story behind the numbers. I would love to have numbers that I can tell for sure we did or didn't meet it. That's fine. I can deal with that all day long. I guess I am, after 5 years of seeing the numbers that we've been given and trying to understand them and trying to figure out the story behind them, I'm now somewhat skeptical that we can pick outcomes that are as binary as I understood Jerry to be suggesting, and as binary as I would like, that that numbers such that there is no story behind the numbers. It just is or it isn't. You know, if I give you a number and ask you, is this more or less than 10? There's no story behind that. It just, anybody can tell me that. Are there those kind of outcomes? Because, for instance, you said, well, we want to increase kids' literacy by 2%. Well, I can think of 100 problems with that right away in measuring, you know, where the rubber meets the road, in measuring literacy, in measuring whether or not, and maybe this year we didn't meet it, but it was because of that cohort, or maybe it's because the state changed the way the measuring is done, or it's because there's always this story behind it. So I would love to have some sort of truly objective outcome, but I'm skeptical as we're sitting here, does that even exist? You see it all over. Are there?
It does exist, and the one other thing that education is terrible at is we usually only like to deal with lagging indicators. What happened last year, right? And so we're going to encourage that we have the list of leading indicators on your scorecard, so you can see where you are. Those were every time you talk about student achievement in your board meeting, you're going to see where you are towards meeting that goal, that 2% goal. And so, yes, in education, we like to have a story behind every number, but the reality is the numbers are the numbers. I mean, they really are. And so, if there was a reason why it happened, then that doesn't affect the numbers. It just affects that we got to go figure out what those, how to address those
And I've had the
reasons.
same thing just since I've been on the board. And I guess the way I look at it is, we hear a lot of excuses. And I think the hard part is sometimes looking at people in the eye and telling them, there are no excuses. This is where we need to be, and we have to figure out how to make that happen. You know, it's a results-driven environment versus, well, we did this, but we didn't get where we needed to be. So
But
if you're doing the leading
I don't
side.
feel like we've actually had like a goalpost, a number to shoot for, or moving the needle. Like, we look at all the numbers, but we don't actually have something that we're.
Yeah.
It's in the campus
Yeah, I
improvement
agree.
plan and the district improvement plans, but I don't know. it's not
Yeah, but if we don't know what they are,
We
then-
don't. Yeah, we don't
That's
see
what you
it.
said
Yeah.
about the lagging and leading indicators,
Yeah.
because when we're looking at star results, you're looking at lagging indicators, because
Right.
that's last year's results, right? And I can tell you that the past 5 years, there have been reasons that the scores are either reported or not reported. You had hurricane, and then you had no accountability system, you had an accountability system, you did, so it was always something. So when we present that information,
So it's
it
an
may
excuse.
sound like excuses, but that's the accountability system the past 5 years, right?
Everything's been,
Well,
it seems like
that's-
everything's
that's
been
my
in limbo.
skepticism.
But that's if we're using only STAR as that indicator.
Right.
The data that you're looking at, there's so many other forms of reading data,
Oh,
or
thank you.
gathering data than just the STAR test.
And what I found interesting since I've been back on the board this time is the differences in reading and math scores for different campuses. Because you'll see, scores for, this campus and this campus, all of a sudden then you look at another campus and they're up there. But then they go back down. And it just puzzles me, why can't we keep that tenure? What's that one campus doing that's getting those scores up there?
Well, and when we go back to this, when we're talking about, that's where the data really does come into play, because we have discovered, kind of catch as catch can, places where a particular instructor, perhaps, when the kids get to that person, everybody takes a dive.
Mm-hmm.
And yet that person remains employed. And that's a problem. That's a problem. So the data can highlight those areas, I think. It can show you when that happens.
Yep.
It also shows you the ones who, everybody should be just doing this. That's the plan, right? You want everybody to just continue to maintain and grow, maintain and grow, maintain and grow, but it doesn't always happen, and there are some other factors that play into it. Let's take, for example, an inclusion class where it's 50% inclusion, you may very well see a dip in scores for that teacher. So now, how do you hold that? scores to count. But you still have to look at the data, you know, and it's, to me, it's always been a very complicated issue.
So what is an
That's why
example
those scores are-
of a truly objective indicator in education?
Well, so like your college and career military readiness, I mean, those are laid out as specific that it's either yes or no. Did they earn an associate's degree? Did they not earn an associate's degree? Did they pass a college class? Did they not? I mean.
But that's clearly a lagging indicator. Right?
That's
Because you don't
correct.
get to see it
Till
but
it's
at
over.
least it exists and it's objective.
Correct.
Even SAT
What
scores.
are
are
SAT,
something-
ACT.
Okay. Okay.
SAT, ACT, TSI.
And they're all a year behind.
The problem is, by the time you see that number, it's too late, because they're out the door.
Well, but if you see a 5-year trend in those numbers, then there's something going on.
Yeah, but I mean, we need to be
But there-
seeing it
there are,
when
reading
it starts.
comprehension that you can do,
Yeah, use
fluency
maps. Yeah,
tests.
use maps.
We don't use MAP.
NWEA
MAP would be
maps.
great, NWEA.
So I think.
Are
those
there
leading?
are tools
Are those
out there.
leading?
Some
Those
of them
are
not
current-
used, they're
current,
being
yeah.
on the back end. of
Because
it,
you're measuring
right? I
the
mean,
beginning,
that's the way we've been
middle,
set up.
and end of
Okay.
year
We can do
for current
things.
year
Yeah.
students.
And that's what's gonna drive this, and that's what I've always
just
found,
need
if
to
you
adopt
give
it.
people,
I mean,
you
that's,
tell them,
I mean,
we're
that's
gonna do
kind of
this,
good
and
because you're
you have to
seeing the
have
same
realistic
group of
objectives.
students, the change,
A realistic
right?
objective,
Well, and if
Right.
you have like what
Yeah,
you
but
just
we're
explained with
performing. Yeah, that's good.
NWEA,
You know, seeing test scores
you can
against
do it
campuses
from
and then
kinder
on campus,
through
boom.
eighth
Do
grade
well,
or
and then
kinder
there's
through
another-
fifth grade.
Yeah.
But
And
we
you
ought to
would
set
at
the
least
goal
have all that
objectives, that's
historical
right.
data.
Figure out how
You
to
would
do
have to start it and then continue it for 5 or 6 years, so that then you could do cohort studies
Yeah.
on those
This is your job.
Right.
not lagging,
Your performance
leading
is gonna be
indicators.
measured.
Exactly.
It has to tie into performance at some point.
So this discussion over here brings up another interesting point. Because if you're seeing what I think Shirley described and Jerry's talking about, you know, Mike even mentioned, they're going along and, you know, they're bumping up and then they hit another campus and they bump down. Then we need data that's gonna determine, okay, is it the individual teachers or is it the administration at that campus that makes the difference?
Or is it the transition?
Is it a
Because
transition?
remember, kids are leaving after 2 years at a campus and moving to another
Yeah,
campus. and
there's
moving to the
another,
next year.
so there's some variables there that if you're just looking at a particular score somewhere year after year, I'm
mean,
not sure you get the
even-
answers you need.
But let me
The nature
let
of
me
the
take on
beast,
the
but they-
issue of Craig campuses as an example. If you set the goal and objective for the leadership of that organization to say, this is where they were, and we want this continual climb, and this is your goal here, then what happens is these guys at this next campus have to figure out not to let this drop, but to achieve this. So they forces them to go do transitional elements, maybe spending time over at the other campus, or getting them accustomed to things. Or we change the way we do classes at those campuses. We've got to be more dynamic about how we address the issues,
Mhm.
and by being results-driven, it forces people to think completely different.
And using our counselors, again,
Yes.
as counselors, because since I taught junior high, I mean, that's the year parents come to you and say, I don't know who this kid is, this is not the child I raised.
Can you keep them for another 2 years?
Yeah, can you just, you know, and they do go through so much, their little bodies, their minds, everything, that these kids who have been doing this for so long, they hit junior high, it's like, you know, and we have to recognize that it does occur.
Sure.
So that's where you have to bring in a different support system, like your counselors, maybe more activities to keep them involved in school, to keep them working for that passing grades. Well, if you're gonna be in this club, you're going to have to stay eligible, or whatever it is to, you know,
It's what do we need to do
what
to
do we
get them
need
there?
to do to help? Yeah.
So, well, NWEA or something, there's a couple other things. I'm a big NWEA fan.
What is
No.
NWEA?
I wasn't until the past 3 years, and I saw the benefit of
Yeah.
What is that?
What is
it.
this?
NWEA MAP.
NWEA, it used to stand for something, but now it doesn't. Northwest Education Association, but it really doesn't stand for anything.
So what are they,
What is it?
what are they
They
testing?
they just named, they have
It's
a.
like KFC, right?
Measure of academic progress is the test,
Stays.
MAPS.
No,
Is it-
it's
what
not,
is it?
it's an actual company.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
company.
You
How
do-
intru-
You do a beginning of year, middle of year, and end of year assessment.
How intrusive is that? Because we always hear our teachers complain that they're too busy doing testing and now we're gonna throw 3 more tests into their year.
You're gonna hear that. You are gonna hear that.
Is there anything that we can weed out that they're doing that's not valuable to us?
Maybe it could count as a grade, that's, I mean, if, I used to
Yeah.
count those as grades myself.
Okay.
Some teachers didn't, but I told my kids, look, that's going to be, whatever we were near, 6 weeks, semester, I told them that's how it counts.
Well, that'll make them take it seriously. I remember
Yeah.
that we heard that teachers said these
But it
kids
just-
blow
it's
these
just a matter of getting used
They
to
do.
it.
standardized test things off if they don't, if it doesn't count.
Well, I don't,
We don't have consistency.
I don't know
right now.
anything about this MAPS program. This is the first time I've ever heard of it.
It's
But
different.
my
So it is gonna
general
count.
idea is, if it's a program that does actually show academic proficiency and if it works, we shouldn't cherry pick and expect it to work the same way. I mean, you don't buy a car, remove 5 parts and expect it's gonna work the same way. You know, you use the whole thing, or, I mean, I don't know anything about it, so maybe it is something you can cherry pick, and we could. But I would not be inclined to do that as my first thing, just to alleviate
I'm
teacher
not hearing
complaints.
I'm not hearing I didn't hear anybody
Oh,
talking about cherry
I misunderstood
picking.
then. I thought you said, you know, is there some things that we could?
No, I'm
pull out
talking
of it?
about stuff that we're already doing.
Pull it away.
I'm sorry.
That's a
Okay.
waste,
I
a
got
waste
it.
of our teachers'
I
time.
got
In
it.
place of doing NWA, but we don't have anything that I have found that's consistent from campus to campus. So we don't have any historical
Yep.
data.
They all use their own thing.
Yeah.
That's what
We
you're
need to
gonna
integrate
replace.
that for sure.
Yes.
And the reality is, what you're gonna replace with maps or
This is the way.
Is all of those other.
is those things that they're using on their individual campuses, you're gonna replace that with a solid approach. And, you know, it's 1st through 8th grade, and they actually have a couple of high school deals now, but 1st through 8th grade is pretty rock solid.
So then you're comparing apples to apples.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's-
Right?
What you just said is what I was getting at. Are there things that are being done that are not mandated, like the STAR, that we can weed out and replace with this standard, you know, if it's really good quality, a standard test, so that you're not just keep adding on to, that's one of the problems it seems like we have in education. Legislature never takes anything away and replaces it, they just keep adding on, and, you know, it's gotta be frustrating for the teachers.
I thought I saw that, I think it was a House bill where they were actually talking about the test counting numerically. I know I just read it, because that, and this I firmly believe in. You know, the first test, I don't know if it's going to be diagnostic, if that's the plan. Because when we used to give the standardized test in October, it was great. We actually could use the
Mhm.
information. And we also were able to see if the kids were retaining what they learned over the summer.
Yep.
But giving the test in April and May is just stupid.
And the state does have the STAR interim test, but since that's going away, it's not something that you can start
Yeah.
using now.
Well,
That company moving,
Yeah.
getting out of the picture.
ETS, and there was always some validity questions with it, so.
Yeah, Shirley, I remember discussions in here several years back where they were talking about using those so that not only could they see what a student needed, but then those results went on to the next
To the next
teacher,
teacher.
so the next teacher knew where the deficiencies were and what progress had been made.
And I thought DMAC was part of that, I don't know,
Well, DMAC is the tracking, they
Right.
still do that. Any teacher made test, they track on DMAC. But there may not be consistency from campus to campus. There may not be consistency, you know, you have like 19 second grade teachers, you know what I'm saying? It's not like you have 4.
Right.
So of the 19, you may have 5 that use DMAC a lot, and you may have 2 that don't. So there's not a report that I can pull that shows me the whole group.
right.
And most of it is teacher generated.
Yes.
And so you don't know the validity of the
That's right.
instrument, to be used
It's valid
across
to
the
what
strata.
they're using in their classroom, because they've done their lesson plans and they have an assessment. But it's not something that I can say, okay, I'm gonna pull this data for all second grade.
Right.
It's gonna be across the board the same. And we'll get there. One thing I'm talking to teachers about, and they themselves have brought it up in these discussions, is they would like to see vertical alignment.
Oh,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay, having those conversations, which is great. great, you know, so we'll start planning to have more of a vertical alignment planning. And that's where some of this discussion will come up,
Yeah.
what are you using as an assessment, here's what I'm using, that kind of thing. The other is putting everything in one place for teachers to be able to go to. So a OneNote notebook where they drop in their lesson plans and they drop in their resources. Because right now, if Shirley has been teaching for 25 years and has all her lessons and everything, she has it in her notebook,
binder, yeah.
in her binder, on her shelf, or she's pulling it out, she's using it. But a new teacher walks in who may need that, and they either go to Shirley or they make a copy of it. So what we're looking at is OneNote, it's a OneNote notebook on the drive, they keep everything there. New teacher comes in, you give them access to it, and everything is there for them. And they can then go in and say, okay, I wanna use this, maybe not this piece, but I like this, drop in
That's
their
a
own.
tremendous tool.
And you'll have the teacher who submits it so that they can go to that person and ask
Yes.
questions. See, that's
Yes.
great, because that's a kind of mentoring in and of
Yes,
itself.
and then if Shirley retires,
It still
it
stays.
stays there.
We don't
Right.
miss that.
You don't miss it. You know, Shirley doesn't take it with her, she could, she could take her hard copy,
She did.
but we now have intellectual property
Yeah.
in that
And now
drive.
it's just added to, or it's modified?
Well, that's another point that came up from another teacher. It's great, they give me all this stuff, but some of it's 20 years old.
Yeah.
It's time for us to start looking at these things and revising and editing. And that's where all that planning comes into place. But the same has to happen with our data. You know,
Sure.
what are we using for assessments?
But again, that gets back to your results-driven mentality, that if you're driving results and if you're constant improvement, then the outcomes that you're looking for say that you have to go back and revise. You can't leave it stagnant.
Right.
You know, because you have to change with the times as things continue the improvement.
And I will tell you that there are pockets of it, okay, so you do have, you know, some principals who have a better handle on, okay, this is the way I want it, and I do wanna see this data, so they make sure that there's consistency across the whole entire grade level, because they've set those expectations. But we have principals of 2 grades per campus, all the way up to high school. So,
There's lots of margin for error in the transfer
Lots of change.
between those.
so what I
But,
set as a principal for these 2 years, for these children that are with me for 2 years, will change when they go to another campus
Right.
for the next 2 years. And
But it doesn't have to.
Doesn't have to, but we don't have it set up that way.
That's what I'm saying, we need a system.
That's why it's,
Right.
that's why it's like.
So what I would like to see is like, ECC working with elementary, coming together and aligning those 3 campuses, all elementary. And then your secondary, which intermediate kind of falls in between.
So you'd have K through 4.
K through 4, and then 5 through 8, and at some point connecting to 9 through 12.
And there should always be,
Just-
and there should always be a liaison.
And that's the classical
There should always be a
education
crossover.
Yep.
lineup. That's exactly it. When you talk about classical education, it's K through 4, and it has to do with the development of the brain, of course. And we know, you know, grammar meaning learning material and then working their way to the point where they can seek the truth at the end. They learn all of this in the lower grades. Then at the point when they're argumentative, they actually learn to argue a point, kind of, but they learn the art of rhetoric, and then they can really knock it out of the park by the time they graduate high school, which is what we want in the community, in the country. We don't have thinkers. We've got to have thinkers, and if we're not graduating thinkers, then we are definitely missing the mark. And the word for that is sin. I'm just going to say, sin means missing the mark. We're missing the mark if we do not graduate thinkers. That's my thought. But that's what we have to go. And I like this. I like the way you're. Yep.
This is way off topic, but I want to throw it out here while I've got it on my mind. Many years ago, Scott Elliff came and talked to a group that I was involved with, the Flint Hills Community Action Council. And we were doing all kinds of community service stuff. And he was talking about the importance of early childhood literacy. And he had all the statistics about if a kid can do X, Y, Z, then they have, you know, this much greater percentage. if they can't, then they've got this greater percentage of dropping out and all. And so we started a program back then, it's been over 20 years ago, called Accelerated, not Accelerated Reader, Early Bird Reader, Early Bird Learner. Anyway, and it was about getting books out to, children's books out to like junior high and high school kids to take home and read to their preschool siblings. And it's still around. The Education Service Center took it over. So while we're discussing all of this stuff that we want to do for our district, let's think about if there's anything that we can do for those children in our community before they come to us, so they come to us better prepared. Just a thought.
You know, this is even further off topic, but as you were speaking, it reminded me of that bookmobile suggestion that we saw for one of the buses.
Mhm.
I think that's a good use of a bus, better than whatever we could get for it at auction. And it further caused me to think, I've got boxes right now at my house of children's books that my kids are never going to read again, and maybe I'll want them when I'm a grandparent, but I'm really hoping that's a while from now. And in the meantime, why don't we recycle those? Why don't we have a program that people could donate that to the bookmobile and get them to kids in the community? Because I can go give them the goodwill, but I'm just kind of
That's actually,
skeptical about the use of that.
that's
I mean,
actually how we started. We did book drives around the community. Channel 3 helped us out. We would do book drives and gather all these children books, and then we'd get together and we'd sort them by age level, and then we'd distribute them to,
Yeah.
via the junior highs and high schools, so that they would take those books
I
home.
mean, we could,
I love
we
those
could do that
little-
with a bookmobile
little
and have
libraries.
lending books from it, but also free books anybody
Little-
can take.
The little box libraries.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I love those all around. I always drop books off at the dump.
Yeah, but what I always wondered, my youngest son, we got him in kinder, first and second grade. We were lucky enough to get him signed up for ESL. And I used to kid everybody, I said, that's the only language he speaks, he doesn't do it very well. But just the reading skills that he learned in kinder, first and second grade, but in the second grade, they tested him, he was reading at a 5th grade level.
Wow.
He never looked back. Eric. And I mean, he flew through college and he's very successful now, but those reading skills and the comprehension, why, okay, if we can do that in the ESL class, why can't we put that in all our classes?
Well, you've been through the trainings, right? Everything you learn about GT, everything you learn about ESL, everything you learn about all of those, it all is the same skill set, but it's applicable everywhere, to every kid. Every kid can benefit from it, which kind of takes me back to what we've been saying here. This is still all about this big picture, and I think what I'm hearing is that everybody's getting the big picture. We're seeing it from before they walk in the door to the time they leave. And we have to provide, as a board, a way and a means for all of this to happen. And that means that we do have to provide. I mean, I'm thinking about the list that we looked at when we first came in, and how there were things about the facilities. Well, that's part of it. Just like, the oceans class, it requires a boat. To get books out to kids and to increase literacy, that might require a bookmobile, which I just love the idea of it, and I wish I had a CD. I'd drive it. I'd be the
We could
one.
probably arrange that.
Yeah, we can.
I'll go with you. I love
I
fine.
think Velma can handle that, Shirley. Check it
All
out.
right. You have to be able to back up. But, okay, I'm sorry, so where are we? We're on,
Well, we're getting close to the end of our time, so 4, what are the answers on 4? This has to deal with advocacy.
That's
not
a
as
hard
we
no.
should. No, not as we should. I mean, a little here, a little there.
No plan.
And then how about 5? Usually people get,
Oh, we usually
Most
have.
yes,
Yeah, we got that,
Yeah, we
yeah, we
usually
got
do
that,
that.
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know about 5.3. I mean, does that still happen?
5.2 doesn't.
We don't have
Now,
board
with
operating
the new
guide.
board members, yes, they have to. That's
Operating
the
guidelines
first.
for the board.
Yeah.
Do we have a?
Well, they're supposed to, and
Yeah,
then,
do they do that?
but are we doing it as just a formality and glossing over, or is it actually done the way it's supposed to be done. I don't
Well,
know.
I don't know, I don't know.
Oh, I thought it was good.
Did they call you in? And
I did it, yeah.
That's the way I remember, I was called in and did
Yeah,
it.
I thought it was
Yeah.
very informative.
Okay,
I
good.
think we still do that.
So we're still doing that right.
Okay, so we get a yes on 5.3.
Yes.
I don't know if we regularly discuss the,
Yeah,
Oh,
5.2, I wouldn't have put a yes.
Well, maybe 50%.
And I think some of that comes from TASB though,
yeah.
all under 5, like
Yeah.
Okay.
board code of
There's
ethics,
certain things
and
we
we
have to
Yeah,
do a certain
I mean, that,
amount, you know,
but
Okay.
as far as
but as far as what our.
local
calendar is,
board operating guidelines,
Yeah.
whether it's state or whether they have their own, that's different.
Yeah, there's no state board operating guidelines,
So
so
they
they
don't-
have some,
they don't
TASB
have-
has
you
some
don't have operating guidelines
samples.
all over.
no, I don't, if we do, I don't know about
But
it.
as far as like a code of ethics and training that they get when they get
Okay,
elected and
sure.
sworn in and.
That's all from the, that's all, yeah, that's statutory.
That's coming
That's
from
legal.
Yeah.
TASB.
Correct.
So it's just the board operating guidelines.
And then 6.
What about 6?
No.
I think we talk around it. I don't know that we specifically, address it that directly.
Most people don't. Most people talk around and get lost in, budget workshops and all of that. Really, we just, by the time you get through the end of the budget workshops, you're just wondering if your teacher's got a raise and,
Yeah.
the.
Yeah,
the
taxpayers
big-
gonna talk to you.
Yeah,
Well, what we should be
exactly,
doing is
exactly.
every line item in the budget should be tied to an outcome. I mean, if you think about how you're achieving your goals and objectives and everything else, there should be a direct link in how it's being supported in the budget, whether it's transportation or nutrition or.
Paying the light bill?
Light bill, whatever.
Pay-per-view,
Every one of those should be
whatever.
tied some ways that you should be able to say, this is supporting that activity. And we don't, I know we don't do that.
Yeah, I was fixing to say, I don't recall ever being in a budget discussion where we talked about how's that going to impact X, Y, Z. Doesn't happen.
I
It's
don't-
always about how much money do we have? What are we trying to accomplish? We start with, and well,
Drive me crazy.
well, not just revenue, but we start where we left off last year. We don't do zero-sum budgeting.
Well, maybe I'm not understanding what you're suggesting, but I'm not sure I agree. Because if we think of an outcome as, I want my NWEA MAP scores to increase 5% by next year, or whatever our outcome is, and those are the kind of outcomes that we're talking about. I'm not sure, I feel like we could stretch it very far to be able to say, well, the money that we spend on free breakfasts is tied to that, or is tied to, because really the money that we're doing, I'm not sure that I would agree with a rule that says rigorously everything in the budget has to be tied to
Remember,
an
your
outcome.
outcomes include budget, financial elements.
The last
Remember, there's a category that's finance.
part 4.
So not only should, I'll give you an example of what I'm thinking. Okay, we're going to go and we're going to say, we're gonna teach oceans, right? Then you're gonna teach oceans and you have an expectation, you have an outcome at some level that says, we're going to do this. Now, at a very high level, it's a different perspective from a board. But at that level, they have to be funded some way to be able to achieve what we're expecting for them. I mean, whether it's a boat and fuel, or it's, transportation to get there, whatever, the teacher, having the
But
teacher.
then the outcome is we're going to teach oceans.
It could be, well, it could be beyond that. We gotta have something more quantifiable, I would say,
Well, I mean, that's
teaching.
quantifiable, that's up or down, we either are or we aren't, right? But,
Yeah.
Well,
but
for us,
I see
it's-
what you're saying.
That could be a starting
I
point.
feel what, yeah.
It could be a starting point, and then we're not only gonna teach oceans, but this is what they're gonna get out of it type thing.
Right, okay.
And the budget is the one place
That's
where
just an
we're
example.
not at the
Understand.
50,000.
I see where you're going with it.
Right.
I didn't
That's what we
understand
have
it.
to.
They become enablers.
Well, but you're really looking at it from that
From
35
that,
to
yeah.
50,000 foot level, because you're not gonna get into each departmental
No.
budgets, but that's what her and her staff do, is they dig through the departmental budgets to make sure that what's being put in there is tied to some sort of, and and again, school districts, we're very good. We can make a whole budget on inputs. Our problems, right? And then next summer, it's a different one that'll solve all the
Right.
problems, so. So let me ask you.
That's gonna take some guidance.
Yeah, it is.
It's gonna take some time, believe me, this is not a one-year process.
No. And we have some tools that we can share with you that help guide, not some of the more stuff you were talking about with the implementation of it, where you actually take this listening and learning and turn it into almost a rounding type situation like doctors do in the hospital, to where and it's centered around your scorecard, where you're really going and listening about implementation and success of what you're doing to get that scorecard. And so we have but so, and you guys, and there's a couple other school districts that, again, y'all are kind of out in front. And so sometimes we're gonna say, no, let's slow down a little bit, because you guys have had all this conversation now, but you gotta remember your district hasn't had this
They haven't had
conversation.
it, that's
Right.
right.
And so that you gotta put in a plan to help them catch up with that,
Mhm.
so.
Well, and honestly, I think the best part about the listening thing is, I like to hear from everyone, and the last thing I want to see our board do is, boom. That's the last thing I wanna see us do, because to me, it grows from here. And then it comes to us and we go, okay, can we do that? Can we? And I wanna see the ideas, because we have some brilliant people who work in this district. And I'm always anxious to hear their ideas. I don't know, I just felt blessed to sit with those kids, because our kids are brilliant. And they're saying things like, well, yeah, okay, I'm voting for you. But that's where it has to come from. The reason the C-scope thing became such a big deal is because it came to everybody just like that. Nobody had a chance to grow into whatever it was. If they don't have the buy-in, if they don't care about it, I don't care what we say here. They shut that door in that classroom and they do what they're going to do. I wanna know what they want, what they know works. They're the ones doing it now, you know.
Listening is how that
Yeah.
occurs. You reminded me of a story and so when I retired, they threw a reception for me, which I fought against, but they did it. And it was, but on this side of it, it's a phenomenal story. I mean, I had U.S. congressmen, I had state representatives, state senators. I got 2 Texas flags that were flown over the Capitol and 1 U.S. flag.
They were that happy that you.
Man.
Yeah, they were very happy. And all these people,
My kind of retirement.
you know, I felt like a little bit like Huck Finn at, in the rafters of the church at his own funeral there. And so, all that was fine and blah, 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 and we went on and got it done. I'm trying to leave, and a little custodian comes up to me, and she's crying. And she hugs me, and she hands me this shot glass that's wrapped in this hand-worked leather that you can tell that she or her family have done to do that. And as she hugged me, she said, "I just want to thank you for always listening to us." And I thought, all the rest of that stuff,
Mhm.
it's great.
Yeah,
But that's
That
what
matters.
it's about right there.
That
that was real.
And so, I have all my career thought that learning is listening, and that at the end of it have that verified, that was good. So we will work on a scorecard then for you guys based upon this, and we'll share it with you. And then next time we're back, we can, if y'all don't mind, we can continue this conversation. We will share some tools with you. There's some opportunities to extend this work out. So, and then tomorrow night's a pretty fun night. We'll go back through those beliefs, make sure that everybody's good with how they look. And then you'll be shocked at how quick a mission and a vision statement come out of the beliefs.
And just so
So-
you know, I did invite principals if they're available to join us tomorrow night, because I didn't wanna bring them in too late in the fall.
Yeah.
Of course, they have access to the YouTube videos, but they're kinda hard to hear, cause we're off in groups
Yeah.
and doing stuff. So if they're available tomorrow, they're gonna join us.
Will you say again what's gonna happen tomorrow night? Because I had a couple who didn't show up, and I'm gonna try and get them to show up tomorrow night. You said you're going to do
So
what?
we'll bring a copy of the beliefs for everybody.
That we worked on last
And-
We're gonna review the beliefs.
And yes, and kind of pass those out, and then we'll get final stamp of approval on each one of them. And then out of those beliefs, we'll have a little exercise where we draw the big words out of the beliefs, and we write them on a sticky pad deal up in front of everybody, and then we'll turn around and say, somebody put that in a sentence, and you'll be shocked that the sentence just kind of comes out.
And this is mission and vision that you're gonna
Mission and
get to?
vision. Mhm. And then your vision comes, then when you do your mission, then we'll do the same thing. We'll pick out the big words in the mission, and that'll end up being the vision.
The vision.
Okay,
I like that.
And we want this to come more organically from the community than from us.
I think we're gonna discover we're all on the same page. pretty
Yeah, I
much.
just like to hear them talk.
Oh, I do too,
Rather than
I
us.
do too. Yeah, but I think that's what we're going to see, because I think this community's tight enough
mm-hmm.
they've come up together already, you know, it's just.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything in that last session that seemed
That you didn't already know.
out of the ordinary. You know, it was all stuff that, you know, I'm feeling the same way.
Mhm.
And students are feeling the same. I mean, people know this district and they know what they want from this district.
It'll be interesting to watch how you pull a vision,
Yeah.
which is 10+ year kind of horizon out of these folks. So I'll be
Yeah.
interested in watching your process.
It's, I mean.
I've seen several processes, I'm just gonna be interesting.
I would like to say that it was done with lots of thought, but it really was kind of, Greg and I stumbled on it, in a very, very small district. And anyway, we left there and we thought, we probably need to patent that. That's pretty good. So, and, it really is, it is very organic the way it happens. And, which is, I think, makes it more real. And the other thing, I will challenge that committee tomorrow night is this: I will challenge them that as you guys go about implementing those beliefs and that mission and that vision, it's going to make some adults in the organization uncomfortable. And so I'm going to tell that committee that they're committed to stand with you when
And
that,
defend it.
and in the community, they need to become raving fans, as Ken Blanchard says.
The two student committees, the junior high and the high school, they'll have representatives at our May board meeting, and they'll be doing a presentation to you about their experience
Wow.
for the past 2
Good.
months, and what I've asked them to, or what I've charged them with for the coming year. So I've asked them to start thinking about 2 things or 2 initiatives that they would like to research and implement on their campuses. Recycling, for instance, if they're interested in that, whether we're doing it or not. And then to be thinking not only about their school, but their community. So if it's something, an initiative that would impact the community, they would go as far as going to present to the city council. And so I really want to get them involved in the schools and in the community. The kids that are serving on junior high that are 8th graders will automatically roll into the high school committee. And the high school, of course, will add more students because we don't have a whole bunch in there. But just want to let you know that they'll be here in May.
Steve?
And
That is so cool.
you've also started a teacher advisory.
Yes, I have a teacher advisory council and a staff advisory council. We're meeting once a month. That group.
That's really, really good.
It's a standing committee, so they will be with me till the end of next school year.
And that will become a highly coveted
Yeah.
position to get elected.
So I'm taking Buck's lead, and how he did his, or ran his council. So I'm taking the agenda to each meeting, reviewing the reports before they come to you, get their feedback and be able to get.
Our
them
job is
involved in
getting
the
easier.
process.
That's what I like,
It's
that's
all
what I'm
about
hearing.
voice.
Our
It's
job
all
is
about
really
voice
good.
and getting them
Yeah.
involved,
Listening.
listening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they like it. So far, I've heard nothing but positive about it.
You haven't told them about the work part yet?
Okay, that's all I have.
That's great. Okay, all right, so thank you, first of all, for being here and for everything that you're doing, but we're down to your remarks, so.
Well, that was part of it.
Part of it.
I will say that it was a great, I guess the reward in all of this, because it was a lot of work, getting all these listening sessions, but it was well worth it. When, you see all this information and you see the same topics come up, so I can see us picking out those main topics and saying, okay, this is something we need to work on, this is something we need to work on. And then becoming knowledgeable of some of these areas that I didn't know about. I've just been here 4 months, so it's good to hear directly from them. So I've truly enjoyed it. Newsletters are going to you every week, and so
They're great, too.
those things are in there. And I'm I am. The administrators are responsible for their sections, so you'll see like Dr. Bragansky has her COVID updates, James has his updates. And so every week they're inputting information there too. They have access to it too, so they know what you're getting. Okay.
Cool.
That's all I have.
That's great. All right, Nicole, we're gonna start with you.
Well, I just want to say it's really amazing to me how plugged in you are and how knowledgeable you already are when you say you're learning things. I feel like everything we ask you, you know.
Yeah. How does she
So,
do it?
yeah. So thank you. That's awesome, and I'm glad you're listening to everybody. And thank you so much for coming and helping us.
It's her, not me.
This thing is a really productive meeting. I mean, looking at all the information we're presented with, it's exciting. I mean, I can see areas that are going to be really challenging, particularly anything related to money. But it's really nice to see, like you were talking about, the commonalities. And at least now, we're going to have some targets. So,
Yep.
thank you. Thank you both for a very productive meeting.
I don't have much to add to that, except that one of the things I like is this, what do you call it, a Wordle
there's
thing?
a Wordle.
It's up there. It's great. And the fact that teachers is the biggest part of that, I mean, we need to let everybody in the district know that that came from the district. That's not us, that's the district. That's how much we value them, and we know where the rubber meets the road. So that's just, I really like that in particular of all the things that we've been shown.
They do have all the answers.
So I've been told since 7th grade.
She was
Yeah. I don't have anything really to add. I think productive discussions we're having I absolutely love the direction. I like the fact that we're moving this way. Been a part of these types of things in other organizations, and it always fascinates me how things come together. And sometimes, I've been through one that didn't go so well, so I can tell you there are pitfalls to something. You gotta pull them back around, but this one seems to be moving, and appreciate your help. Thank you, Ellen, for bringing them to the table as well.
I tell you what, I'm just amazed what you've done in 4 months. I can't wait to see what the next 4 months bring. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to say, I'm going to start with this, because this is where I'm starting. I got this instant message the other day. I get messages about you all the time, but this one I don't read to. She says, it's really something, this Miss Velma. It's her smile. She makes me feel like all the God's glory is bringing us out of the darkness. And I got that one 2 days ago. But I get stuff about you all the time, and it's always positive. And I had the privilege of watching her presentation, which I really think she should just, record it so we can put it on the I'm serious, on the website, where she explained everything you can imagine to the Business Association. It was an incredible presentation. I was so proud, and so I did tell them how she does. I said, we did hire her because she had two clones that she brought with her that she could use at various places. Because I seriously don't know how she's been getting every place she gets, but it's it makes me very happy because I love this place so much, and I know you do, and it shows. You wouldn't do this if it didn't matter. And I love this board because you are, your hearts are just in the right place. And I love it that, I'm looking up here, and it's the strength that's in a heart, that you have a heart for kids, you have a heart for this district, and just for humanity in general. And that, I think, is the driving force behind what we do. That makes me happy to be just part of the best board that I can imagine. And with that, I'm gonna say thank you, God, for giving us a great meeting, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you, and what time is it, Mr. Cooper? At 8:27?
Yes.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Ms.
Nicole.
Peters, got it? All in favor?